Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Let's go 6316, 8.8 for 6,000.
Yeah, 6316, North Approach, so maintain 3,000, number 1 for the right.
3,000, go 6317.
Redwood 811, so maintain 4,000. Airport over the fog, 1.
Take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again. Take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again.
Be careful, runway heading, runway 5. Let's take off.
Check.
We are live on Spaced Out Radio.
And we are ready for takeoff. Sit back, relax. It's time to travel with Cosmic Passport. Spaced Out Weekend presents Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport. A 1-hour warm-up of news, stories, thoughts, and ideas to captivate your mind. You can follow us at spacedoutradio.com.
20 years have passed us by. Look back and count the time.
And now, here's Our Lady of Flight, Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Passport. Hey, if you are in the chat room, give me a shout. Let me know if you can hear me. We are on Revolution Radio tonight, as far as I can tell. We're also on the SOR Space Travelers, as far as I can tell. And, we're going to be bringing you a live show for the first hour, me talking about our wonderful, wonderful world of the paranormal. It's going to be a great show, and hang on one second. We've got a lot to cover tonight. A lot of things that you wouldn't expect came up this week. What? Things that you wouldn't expect? Yes, they did. There's a lot going on in the paranormal right now. We had a huge snake in Maine. We had a bunch of physicists who I talked about last night. Not the CERN physicists, but I bet some of them are related to some people at CERN. Decide that, you know what, there may be a possible fifth force, and, physics is not acting the way we expected it to. Imagine that. We also have some nice stories, because I know in the Spaced Out Radio Spreaker chat room last night we were talking about mushrooms in the paranormal. Well, we've got some stories about mushrooms in the paranormal. Isn't this great? It's Spaced Out Radio Weekend. What are we going to talk about? Drugs in the paranormal. And guess what? James is on vacation. We have a nice, wonderful Gerard Aartsen interview by James talking about the Friendly Space Brothers. If anybody knows me, they'll know that I'm got one leg on either side of the fence on Friendly Space Brothers because the people who tend to talk about Friendly Space Brothers say that no one's ever been abducted, and and I have a police report to prove it and lots of memories. So, but we will listen and be kind, and I will not tea kettle tonight while James talks to Gerard Aartsen about the Friendly Space Brothers and Madame Blavatsky and all of this wonderful esoteric theosophist stuff regarding aliens and George Adamski, who, again, I've got one leg on one side, which I think aliens can be helpful, and one leg on the other side, which is, hey, that doesn't mean they're perfect. Who is perfect? Anybody who's living? My cat threw up on the floor today. I guess I didn't feed her enough wet food. I had to clean it up. Is it always the greatest thing being in relationship with another species? No. Sometimes you have to deal with the things that happen. And to say that another species is perfect, well, I'm just going to call my bias right here. I don't think any species that's living in the physical is perfect. So, friendly space brother or not, if somebody's saying they're perfect, somebody has really big stars in their eyes. That's all I'm going to say about this. This is Elizabeth Anglin, your host before the host, now your host before the recorded host. We're on Spaced Out Radio Weekend. If you're joining us on Revolution Radio at Freedom Slips, I am on the chat. I can't read the chat and read the news at the same time, but I'll check in. If you are on Spreaker chat, thank you for being here. I am going to be looking at that from time to time as I try to read the news. And if you are on SOR Space Travelers, yay! Just to let you know, SOR Space Travelers, those are the people who really love us here at Spaced Out Radio. Why? Because they give us $5 a month to do this. It's so exciting. And then what do we do in exchange? We make sure they get all the archives, of course. That's just, de rigueur. You got to do that. But we also give away free gifts, a newsletter, private interviews, and a private section online only for them. So if you love Spaced Out Radio and you want to give us $5 a month to do this, because we're making the big bucks here, I'll tell you, like all of negative, never mind. Please join SOR Space Travelers. It's a lot of fun. Our chat room on Facebook is a lot of fun. That's where I like to go. We're going to be there every night, 7 days a week. If you're on Revolution Radio is listener supported. It's like the public radio of conspiratorial, paranormal, ufological, everything. So if you want the public radio of those things to keep going, give a donation to Revolution Radio. It's a great place to put your money. And no, we're not going to have a month-long telethon for Revolution Radio, but we will mention them from time to time. So, now that we've talked about those things, which thing do you guys want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about drugs and the paranormal and the spiritual path, or do you want to talk about physicists? I know what some of you are saying. I can hear it. I'm telepathic, but tell me on the Spreaker chat room. Drugs or physicists? Drugs or physicists? Mushrooms? Psychedelics? I'm going for psychedelics. I'm sorry, you can't stop me. All right, so the BBC did a wonderful story, which I'm finding through The Anomalist, a great website, called Have We Always Got a High for God? And it's by Helena Roerich. She says, the human species have been experimenting with drugs since we first crawled out of the sea. Well, maybe not, but you see the point I'm trying to make. Drugs are not a new thing, but ancient civilizations used them for an altogether higher purpose than we do now, because we like fun. That's how we are. Entheogens are drugs used for religious or spiritual motivation, rather than purely recreational purposes. Modern-day entheogen use is all the rage, but have we always got a high for God? Apparently more than you would think. Here are some of the ways drugs have been used throughout religious history. Mushroom rationing in Siberia. Several 18th century reports describe the use of magic mushrooms in numerous Siberian tribes, usually in reference to witch doctors and shamans who used mushrooms whilst trying to talk to the gods. In an attempt to make full use of the drug, evidently shroom stock is scarce in Siberia, they came up with an inventive solution. Drink the urine of the drug users. Oh, blah, this is me. Apparently, the doped urine was potent for up to 5 cycles, as in passing through the body and being drunk 5 times over. Yes, totally gross. Before traces of the mushrooms were lost. Nothing went to waste in Siberia. Sharing is caring after all. And just so you know, if you ever do have to drink urine, it is sterile, but it's not going to do anything for you, so don't do it. The real power of Christ. This gets controversial. According to John Marco Allegro, in The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, thousands of years ago, magic mushrooms were thought to improve fertility, leading to cults being created around the belief. He sustained that these secret fungal cults eventually led to the concept of Jesus. Essentially, he claims, Jesus didn't exist. He was kind of a code word for the mysterious mushroom power, and the Jesus myth caught on, rapidly spreading, and eventually became Christianity. I think Cog and I would have something to say about that, as would some other people. Allegro has even gone as far as analyzing ancient languages to demonstrate that the name Jesus actually meant something along the lines of semen, and that Christ meant something like giant erect mushroom penis. Yes, seriously. I think Allegro has been doing a lot of mushrooms. That's what I think. Shiva's chillin'. Let's move on to Shiva, or Shiva, however you want to call him. The Hindu god Shiva has long been linked to cannabis, notably through the story of creation. Long story short, the gods got together to churn the cosmic ocean. From the depths rose poison, which started heating up the cosmos. Such was its heat that the animals and the plants started dying. Shiva came to the rescue and drank the poison, but over time, it made him so hot he needed to be cooled down. Marijuana is supposed to be a coolant, so it is said that Shiva smokes weed to keep his body temperature down. Not everyone subscribes to this version of events on creation, but it is a theory. Some Hindus, through history, have followed in Shiva's footsteps, hoping to cleanse their sins and unite with Shiva, some alleging it can provide insight into the future. Maybe. The secret ingredient. In ancient Greece, the Eleusinian mystery cult reigned for almost 2,000 years. One of the most important rituals for followers of the religion involved a 10-day journey and a fast, which was broken at the destination by drinking kykeon. I hope I'm saying that right. Or kykeon. This was a drink made from barley, herbs, and the parasite ergot, which causes similar psychedelic effects to LSD. Sometimes they put cheese in it too. Again, gross. Upon drinking kykeon, the most secret mysteries of the cult were revealed. Some people have ascribed the cult's longevity to the brew alone, but we'll never know because that's the point of a mystery cult. Who's going to know? When in doubt, what would a jaguar do? Some of the earliest missionaries of South America wrote about the use of ayahuasca by Amazonian populations, and it's still used to this day by shamans as a medicinal brew for everything from curing depression to the terrifying concept of soul loss. Most indigenous Amazonian populations sustain that their ancestors learned how to concoct the drink from mystic plant spirits and through the teachings of the jaguar. See, learning can be fun. You just go to the jaguar, you hope it doesn't kill you, you pet it, you let it purr, you talk to it nicely, and then, it teaches you how to use ayahuasca. It's so easy. It's ridiculous. I'm going immediately to find the jaguar after I take a sip of tea. Next, we move on to Moses. High on Mount Sinai stood Moses. Benny Shannon, a psychology professor at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, controversially proposed the theory that psychedelic drugs were an integral part of the religious practices of the Israelites in biblical times. He suggested that Moses was high on mushrooms or some other psychedelic drug when he received the 10 Commandments, as were his followers, and that the tales of the flaming bush and the parting of the Red Sea was most likely vividly and drug-induced hallucinations. Suffice it to say, his theory didn't go down too well in religious circles, but still, the argument stands. Yeah, there are lots of ideas about the Red Sea. I've heard a lot of different ideas about the Red Sea, but never that it was a trip. That's the first time. Next question. Where do babies come from? Answer. Marijuana. Some of you guys know this is true, and gals. You don't have to raise your hands. According to ancient Germanic pagans, of which many were probably our ancestors, many people on here, and other places, for them, weed and the Norse love goddess Freya went hand in hand. It was believed that the cannabis flowers contained Freya's divine energy, and they would give sexual powers to those who consumed them. Both women and men would harvest and eat the plant at the ironically titled High Festival, or High Festival, hoping to raise fertility levels and make babies, especially important if you're a Germanic pagan lord needing an heir. So, drugs and religion are far from a new alliance, but if a dodgy-looking guy ever offers you mushroom urine, promising a conversation with God, you should probably just say no. Yeah, I think I'll say no. I haven't seen any mushrooms around here lately, but I think I'll say no. Next story. Psychedelics, Religion, and the Outlaw Science by John Lilly. Yes, we have the portal dog tonight. He's looking for the cat wet food. I do apologize for his yipping. There's a big storm going on, and he's a little bit upset because he both is not getting wet food and he has to deal with the storm. So that's just some random dog that came through the cat portal. Unfortunately, it's raining. It's dogs and cats through the portal. All right, this is from Scientific American. World's smartest physicist thinks science can't crack consciousness. I think right away the title would make the physicist crack up because nobody says that about themselves. String theorist Edward Witten says consciousness will remain a mystery. Yay, there are still mysteries! Here's what he writes. I've been writing a lot lately about consciousness, the ultimate enigma. I used to think why there is something rather than nothing is the ultimate enigma. But without mind, there might as well be nothing, because you got nothing to think about it with. That's my side. Some mind ponderers, notably philosopher Colin McGinn, argue that consciousness is unsolvable. Philosopher Owen Flanagan calls these pessimists Mysterians, after the 60s era rock group Question Mark and the Mysterians. Recently, physicist Edward Witten came out as a Mysterian. Witten is regarded with awe by his fellow physicists, some of whom have compared him to Einstein and Newton. He is largely responsible for the popularity of string theory over the past several decades. String theory holds that all of nature's forces stem from infinitesimal particles wriggling in a hyperspace consisting of many extra dimensions. Witten is optimistic about science's power to solve mysteries, such as why there is something rather than nothing. In a 2004 Q&A, he said, the modern scientific endeavor has been going on for hundreds of years by now, and we've gotten way farther than our predecessors probably imagined. He also reaffirmed his belief that string theory will turn out to be right. My theory, it's right. That's what he says. But in a fascinating video interview with journalist Wim Kaiser, Witten is pessimistic about the prospects of scientific explanation of consciousness. The chemist Ash Jodgalar, who blogs as The Curious Wave Function, wrote about Witten's speech and transcribed the relevant section. Thanks, Ash. And here's what he had to say. I think consciousness will remain a mystery. Yes, that's what I tend to believe. I tend to think that the workings of the conscious brain will be elucidated to a large extent. Biologists and perhaps physicists will understand much better how the brain works. But why something that we call consciousness goes with these workings, I think that will remain mysterious. I have a much easier time imagining how we understand the Big Bang than I have imagining how we can understand consciousness. So that is what we have there, what the smartest, brainiest physicist, he's the physiest physicist, says. So, yeah, yes, okay, folks in the chat room, I do want the dog to go to the puppy chat room. I may have to put us on mute for a second to send him there. Part of the problem is somebody has camped outside my front door on the main street of town, and they have a dog. And I think my puppy wants to go see the dog in the camper. Hey, Wyatt, come here. You want to be on the radio? This is Wyatt Earp. He's refusing to come here, but I know he will continue to bark. His consciousness is a complete and total mystery to me, except for the fact that he thinks he should get treats when he barks, and he thinks he should get treats when he comes in the house, and he thinks he should get treats when he jumps on the bed, and on and on and on. Wyatt, you want to come here? Come here, Wyatt. Nope, we got nothing. All right, so puppy chat room is out, but I tell you what, if this little puppers, who is a big 90-pound Tibetan Mastiff cross, keeps doing this, he may go out in the camper, and you might listen to some music while he goes. All right, what else is happening in the paranormal besides the puppy that didn't actually come through the portal, and he's really spoiled because he's mine, and he gets yippy. Well, other things in the actual paranormal happened, but other things happened in physics. And since we just talked about Edward Witten talking about consciousness, Scientific America did a story on the supernatural and the paranormal. They dissed us. They dissed people who are into it, but they did a story on it. And this is what they said. This is in scientificamerican.com article. Is it possible to measure supernatural, we'll talk about supernatural later, supernatural or paranormal phenomena? Well, let's see. There are pigs flying in the picture. There are horses standing on, in places. Here, this is by Michael Shermer. Some of you may know and already love and hate Michael Shermer as much as I do. The history of science has beheld the steady replacement of the paranormal and the supernatural with the normal and the natural. Weather events once attributed to the supernatural scheming of deities are now understood to be the product of natural forces of temperature and pressure. Plagues, formerly ascribed to women cavorting with the devil, are currently known to be caused by bacteria and viruses. Mental illnesses, previously imputed to demonic possession, are today sought in genes and neurochemistry. Accidents heretofore explained by fate, karma, or providence are nowadays accredited to probabilities, statistics, and risk. If we follow this trend to encompass all phenomena, what place is there for such paranormal forces as ESP or supernatural agents like God? Do we know enough to know that they cannot exist? Or is it possible there are unknown forces within our universe or intentional agents outside of it that we have yet to discover? According to California Institute of Technology physicist Sean Carroll in his intensely insightful book, The Big Picture, by Dutton, 2016, all of the things you've seen or experienced in your life, objects, plants, animals, people, and for those of us, aliens, Bigfoot, other paranormal, are made up of a small number of particles interacting with one another through a small number of forces. Or so you think. We'll get on to the new forces. Once you understand the fundamental laws of nature, you could scale up to planets and people and even assess the probability that God, the soul, the afterlife, and ESP exist. But Carroll concludes this is a very low probability. But isn't the history of science also strewn with the remains of failed theories such as the phlogiston, miasma, spontaneous generation, and the luminiferous aether? Yes! And that is how we know we are making progress. The postmodern belief that discarded ideas mean that there is no objective reality and that all theories are equal is more wrong than all wrong theories combined. The reason has to do with the relation of the known to the unknown. Wow, I feel like I'm 5. Sorry, Michael Shermer, I do feel like I'm 5 as I read this. I'm just telling you, my brain is shrinking as I read it. It's getting very, very small. As the sphere of the known expands into the ether of the unknown, the proportion of ignorance seems to grow. I'll say, the more you know how much you don't know. I'll say, but note what happens when the radius of the sphere increases. The increase in the surface area is squared while the increase of the volume is cubed. Therefore, as the radius of the sphere of the scientific knowledge doubles, the surface area of the unknown increases fourfold, but the volume of the known increases eightfold. It is at this boundary where we can stake a claim of true progress in the history of science. And my atheistic butt. That's an aside, and I paraphrased, said Michael Shermer. Take our understanding of particles and forces, which Carol says seems indisputably accurate within a wide domain of applicability, such that 1,000 or 1,000,000 years from now, whatever amazing discoveries science will have made, our descendants are not going to be saying, "Ha ha, the silly 21st century scientists believing in neutrons and electromagnetism." You think? Thus, Carol concludes that the laws of physics rule out the possibility of true psychic powers. Yes, folks, this guy, Sean Carroll, just told me I don't exist. Okay, if he says so. Why? Because the particles and forces of nature don't allow us to bend spoons. Actually, I have a bent spoon that was bent by one of our guests on the show. It's really cool. Levitate or read minds. Actually, I've been doing animal communication for vets at academic institutions for 22 years. But never mind that. And we know that there aren't any new particles or forces out there yet to be discovered that would support them. Yeah, in a minute we're going to read about the fifth force. Not simply because we haven't found them yet. Yeah, we haven't found them yet. But because we definitely would have found them if they had the right characteristics to give us the requisite powers. Oh my effing goodness! I'm so done with this article. This guy is like, he's the stick that he's sitting on is, I don't see how it, I just don't understand. So let's go on to the next article. Physicists confirm a possible fifth force. Michael Shermer. Yes, they did. Anybody know what the four forces are? Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and the weak, nuclear forces that rule the inner workings of atoms. In recent months, the physics community has been buzzing with the word of evidence of a possible fifth fundamental force. This is from Earth Sky, if you want to read it. On August 14th, 2016, physicists at the University of California, Irvine announced they have confirmed evidence for this force on theoretical grounds using experimental data acquired by Hungarian scientists in 2015. The journal Physical Review Letters has published the Irvine scientist studies. Jonathan Fing, professor of physics and astronomy at the University of California, Irvine, and lead author of the new theoretical study, said, if confirmed by further experiment, the discovery of a possible fifth force would completely change our understanding of the universe, with consequences for the unification of forces and dark matter, which we do not know anything about right now, but we do theorize it's out there. So, Michael Shermer, you're out here saying that, science has already figured it out, and there can't be anything new to learn. And those of us who think that there can be something new to learn, you've got physicists over in this other corner saying, wait a minute, we still don't know what dark matter is. We don't know what dark energy is. We don't know where 40 to 60 to 80% of the universe is and what it's doing. And you're telling us that if there was something to be learned, we would already have learned it. Yeah. I get you. I'm glad that you are a journalist and you don't work with physicists and you don't work with the paranormal, because you know what? You would have a hard time feeling good about yourself right about now, Michael Shermer, because you know what? You don't know as much as you think you do, being a journalist. Oh, maybe you are a physicist too. I might be talking wrong about that. But in any case, ha ha, there's probably a fifth one, and you didn't talk at all about dark matter. Ha ha. All right, more fun stuff. Okay, this is also personal, not because it's physics, but I did a reading a few years ago. A lot of people were wondering, when the climate change stuff was going to start to hit the fan. And I said, well, you'll start seeing it when you start seeing southern animals like crocodiles, alligators, and big snakes in the north. Well, here's a story about a big snake. a big 10-foot snake. And it's called Wessie is Real, and it's from CryptoZoo News. And it's posted by Lauren Coleman. If you want to go on cryptozoonews.com/Wessie-real is where you'll find it. Wessie is Real! As you may recall, beginning on June 23, 2016, serious sightings of a 10-foot-long snake were made and filed with members of the Westbrook, Maine Police Department. The giant snake was then seen by 2 officers at 3:30 a.m. on June 29th eating a beaver and swimming across the Persumscot River near Riverside Park in Westbrook, Maine to Brown Street, where it disappeared into the brush. The snake was then dubbed Wessie. But quickly, the debunkers were heard from. In July, here's what they said. David Sparks, who founded Sparks Ark Animal Services in New Gloucester, which rehabilitates various wild animals, told the American Journal in July of 2016 that he was unconvinced that a large snake has made itself at home on the river. I question whether it was a snake, he said on Tuesday, July 12th. Sparks, who lives along the Persumscot River in Wyndham, said it's more likely the officers saw a beaver dragging a large tree branch across the river, creating the perception that a snake had snagged the beaver. Sparks has hosted educational programs with large snakes for more than 25 years. I believe that people would think that they saw a snake, but I just don't think from the 2 reports that it was, he said. The sighting from the 2 officers was in the area of Spear Street at approximately 3:30 a.m. One of the officers attempted to take a video, but it was too dark to see any of the images. But the doubters were wrong. On Saturday, August 20th, yesterday, at around 3 p.m. near the Carrion boat launch, a local person found a shed snakeskin. It was very large and proves a large snake is in the area. Wessie is real. At least there's that can be said about the new find. Westbrook Police Chief Janine Roberts messaged via the media to the public the serious nature of their past and current alerts. They are warning the public about snakes after the large snakeskin was found near the Persumscot River. Until the type of snake is determined and we can assess the safety risk, we caution people who recreate along the Persumscot River to remain alert, maintain a safe distance from any wildlife, and report any sightings of the snake to the Westbrook Police Department. The International Cryptozoology Museum at Thompson's Point, Portland, Maine, the world's only cryptozoology museum, has offered our full services of identification and research sources to the Westbrook Police Department. So, we are helpful cryptozoologists in our way. I tend to think somebody's big old snake got out, but that's me. I can be skeptical like that. But the other thing is the water is warmer no matter what you think about climate change. We are having differences in temperature in different places. And the south moving to the north is a real possibility, including animals from the south that would normally be seen in southern locations could very well be in the north and living there and surviving there through a variety of means. So go Wessie. Go Wessie. Whew. Okay, just various and other weirdness. Yesterday on CNBC, they did a story of the mystery of how a company set up to search for Bigfoot hit a $10 billion value. Do not fall off your chair or roll down the hill if you are already off your chair, or fall over that cliff if you have already rolled down the hill, those of us who look for Bigfoot and sometimes find Bigfoot. Here's what CNBC had to say. And this is on cnbc.com, 2016/8/17. Tom Biscardi said he has personally seen Bigfoot 7 times in 45 years. But that isn't the most surprising thing about him. No. The most surprising thing about Biscardi is that he is the CEO and controlling shareholder of a company that had a market capitalization on Wednesday morning of more than $10 billion,
according to FactSet, a widely used data provider that tracks publicly traded companies. What does his company do? Biscardi's company is in the big business of Bigfoot. Figuring out just how a company like that can have a market capitalization listed at more than $10 billion is a mystery worthy of Bigfoot himself. It begins in the woods, as all good Yeti stories do. Biscardi told CNBC on Tuesday that his first encounter with a Bigfoot came on a creature-finding expedition in Northern California in 1973. He said he saw a large hairy monster squatting by a chokecherry bush, eating. It had a hairy face that looked almost human, and the creature had berry juice all over its mouth. As it stood up, it turned and looked directly at the explorers. Biscardi recalled, "I got to tell you something. I nearly..." Not to worry. The beast did not harm Biscardi. He survived the encounter and says he went on to spot Bigfoot 6 more times, lead expeditions across the country, produce a variety of videos, and help launch a website on which he is referred to as the Godfather of Bigfoot. In 2013, the company Biscardi controls filed an S-1 form and registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the stock ticker BGFT, of course. The company is officially named Bigfoot Project Investments, Inc., and it's what's known on Wall Street as a pink sheets firm. That means it is an over-the-counter stock traded in the OTC's least regulated and least scrutinized market. On its website, OTC Markets describes the pink sheets market as home to penny stocks, shell corporations, and distressed, delinquent, and dark companies that are not able or willing to provide adequate information to investors. The netherworld of stocks has attracted increased scrutiny this week in the wake of the SEC's decision to suspend trading in another over-the-counter stock, Neuromama, a Tijuana, Mexico-based company with a murky business model that somehow achieved a staggering $35 billion market capitalization. But for the SEC enforcement personnel, finding and eliminating such companies can be a lot like the work Biscardi does, hunting for Bigfoot. A slow, painstaking accumulation of evidence, often with very little to show for it. The Bigfoot Company is in a different category than Neuromama. It is active in making current filings with the SEC, the most recent on August 9th. On the OTC Markets website, there are no markings on Bigfoot's stock chart that indicate potential problems, such as the skull and crossbones buyer beware label OTC uses to designate companies with potential red flags. Biscardi resents the Bigfoot skeptics. They say, "You're crazy, this thing doesn't exist," he told CNBC. Well, it does exist, number one, and number two, and we did take it public. In its first filings with the SEC, Bigfoot says its stock became eligible for trading on June 28, 2016 on the OTC Bulletin Board, but as of July 29th, the stock had not yet begun trading. Still, this week, FactSet listed a current share price of $50.01 for BGFT. That, multiplied by the number of shares outstanding, more than 200 million, gives the $10 billion figure for market capitalization. Okay, I'm dying here, folks. Do you understand what's going on? I'm dying. We could just buy all the land that the Bigfoot is on. We wouldn't even have to go out and look for, we'll just buy it. We'll just form a thing and say, okay, let's just buy the land. I'm dying. This is killing me. This guy is killing me. CNBC goes on to say, what is clear is that the tale of BGFT highlights the strange distortion effects that can happen in the pink sheets netherworld, a mysterious place where the metrics investors used to value companies such as market capitalization can lose all meaning in a haze of accounting fiction. Market capitalization is a fine way to measure big, widely traded companies, but for a firm like Bigfoot, it doesn't make any sense at all. A $10 billion valuation puts Bigfoot on par with Xerox, Discovery Communications, and Gap, well-known companies with massive assets and popular products. Yeah, I tend to think it doesn't make any sense at all, because I'm really just going to faint straight away. In the risk factors firm of this firm's SEC filings, the company discloses all the potential problems it could face, including problems relating to auditors, its burn rate, and potential future revenue issues. Nowhere does the company say that failing to find Bigfoot is a risk factor. In fact, Biscardi says the firm can make money even if Bigfoot is never actually found. Well, that's kind of true. The firm lists Biscardi's salary at $0. Bigfoot Project Investments is clearly a labor of love. The firm's market capitalization was so off target that even Biscardi, who owns more than 58% of the stock, was unaware of the listed market capitalization of the company when CNBC called him this week. Told that the market data service lists Bigfoot with a $10 billion market capitalization, Biscardi said, "Wow, that's a lot of money," and asked if the figure made any sense, or if there were any financials that would back up such a figure. Biscardi said, "Oh, I wouldn't say so. I don't think so at all." Okay, so he's real. At least he's real about that. Because you know what? I don't know what I do. But this sounds fun. Biscardi said he had just finished a 6-week expedition looking for Bigfoot in Montana, and that he was working with former Navy SEALs and Army Airborne Rangers in the hunt. "We know that they exist," Biscardi said, of the malevolent bipeds. Hey, that was mean. Now his goal is to prove it to the mainstream of America. In its filings with the SEC, Bigfoot says it is in the entertainment industry. Well, you know what? They got me going with Navy SEALs and Army Airborne Rangers looking for Bigfoot because I know that I'll, as a girl, you'll see like hunky guys looking for Bigfoot instead of your regular people who shouldn't even be out in the woods. Anyway, it says that it develops documentaries, sells DVDs, and exhibitions of Bigfoot-related materials. The company says it has a burn rate of $25,000 per year and a revenue of only $5,444 per year. That sounds reasonable, but it hopes the new DVD sales will increase revenue. Biscardi also said he has plans to open a Bigfoot museum, possibly in California. So, all right. We are not getting left in the dust here. I can stop feeling sorry for us all and myself. I probably make more money than this guy does, so, I guess that's okay. But, man, wouldn't it be cool to have your company be listed? Wow. How cool would that be? All right, moving on to other paranormal stuff this evening. I'm thinking. I'm not just being silent for fun to make you wonder what I'm going to say. Sometimes you have to think. And sometimes you should probably think before you get on air. Here in the Daily Mail, there is a story about a dog who is not currently yipping on air right now. Did this dog find Bigfoot? And the question is, did this dog find Bigfoot? And how many of you, I know that the one day that I was visited in the middle of the day, I was telepathically told I was being visited by 3 boys, 3 pre-teenage and a couple teenage boy Bigfoots. I could only see a shimmer. I really couldn't see them physically, but my dog went crazy. He went absolutely crazy. He'd been living up on the mountain, up on Horsefly Mesa, on Horsefly Peak. We'd been living up there for about 3 years. He was used to the kind of critters that came by, even the bears. He didn't have trouble with the kind of animals that came by. And he had to get outside. He was going crazy, and he was barking at a particular spot just over our worm fence, which is an aspen fence that's zigzagging, so it's like a worm. And probably the worm fence was 35 yards away, and he kept barking at the same spot. And as I'm looking at the spot, the only thing that I can see with my physical eyes is what looks like a heat shimmer. But it's literally all of 62 degrees outside. It is noon, but normally on waving grass and grass that's in the wind, you don't get a heat shimmer. And I saw a goodly sized heat shimmer, maybe 10, 15 feet across, 10 feet across. And I was like, well, that's really, really odd. what's that heat shiver doing there? So my dog barked at that spot for a long time, and I had been introduced to the old man telepathically already, and I said, hey, is that you? And I heard back, no, it's my boys. They were curious about you, so they came by. Well, it freaked the dog right out. So in the dailymail.com reporter, it says, pet with a GoPro strapped to its back stumbles upon a mysterious creature in the Oregon forest. Well, geez, if my dog had a GoPro, maybe I would have got pictures. Maybe my brain would not have been influenced. Who'd have thunk? I'm going to get my dog a GoPro, like right now. Here's the story from dailymail.co.uk. Could a dog have unearthed the mythical creature Bigfoot in Oregon? A video purporting to show the elusive Sasquatch has caused quite a stir online after it was shared by Bigfoot Encounters YouTube channel. According to the description alongside the clip, a man strapped a GoPro camera to his pet pooch and filmed the sighting in some woods in 2015. The film is on the dailymail.uk, and there is something that does look like an ape in front of him, but it could be a man in a gorilla suit kneeling, and that's when it gets hard to tell. The clip reemerged this week after being posted by Viral Nova, with many theorists coming forward with their opinions. The short video shows a dog walking through grassy woods when a figure suddenly walks by. It stands up on two legs, like a human, and, oh man, I hate these sites with all the ads. Hang on, guys. It stands up on two legs like a human, but also appears to be a hairy and ape-like. Since appearing online, some believers have suggested the footage may indeed be genuine. However, many have called to question the authenticity, mostly due to the dog's reaction or lack thereof. I would say so. My dog went nuts. Absolutely nuts. And the YouTube user commented, your dog showed no reaction as you walked by in the ape suit. As you walked by in the ape suit. Yeah, I think the dog would be going a little crazy, either trying to run away or bark or hold and bark. I just think so. That's what I've seen. My dog, he went crazy. Oh, you guys probably can't hear me. So, enough of that. Enough of the Bigfoot story. Okay, moving on. Well, having some issues here with Spreaker Studio. Sorry, guys. It keeps not wanting to stay at its full size, and you can't hear me if it doesn't stay where it is. So there we go. Tonight's guest, Gerard Aartsen, is coming on in just under 8 minutes. Well, actually, we're going to go to break in just under 8 minutes. Right here, just about eight minutes. Yeah, Gerard Aartsen has written a book about friendly space brothers, and he's from the Netherlands. He's done a lot of research into George Adamski and Benjamin Creme, and the group that talks about all aliens being friendly space brothers, and also Madame Blavatsky and other members of the Theosophist group that have been around for over 100 years, even longer than that. Now, if you think about Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophists, they have not always been right about everything that they profess to believe or every prophecy that they make. But they will claim that they are. So I'm just saying, when you listen to the claims that come out tonight, realize that Theosophists will oftentimes claim victory when there is no victory in sight. And one of them was that they claimed that Christ came back at the turn of 1800s to 1900s, and he was Indian, and that he was this young man who was the return of Christ. So they scooped him up from his family and took him off with his brother to go on the road with them, and he became very ill. And when he became very ill, he had a healing event in the woods, in nature, where he became enlightened, so to speak. He was under a tree. And this young man, he was very gentle. He was wonderful. Some of you will know him by the name Krishnamurti. He had a wonderful philosophy about life, which was to pay attention to everything, to not get stuck in your head about what you think you know. Just pay attention. Pay attention to the trees, to the grass, to the air, the wind, to anything that you're presented with. Pay attention to it. Be deeply present with it. Because when he had his healing experience as a child, after being ripped away from his family by the Theosophists and being told he was the next coming of Christ, when he did not believe this, he realized that being present with nature, being present in nature, under a tree, he could feel the energy of God, of the Creator, of Spirit within all of these things, and the presence of the light. And these were the things that healed him of his very significant illness. They quite thought he was going to die, and he thought he was going to die. Well, he didn't die, which is a good thing. Krishnamurti, if you haven't checked out his writings, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or Hindu or Buddhist or what you are. He's non-denominational. He's simply a philosopher. He has some wonderful, wonderful things to say about being the world. But he also says that he wasn't the second coming of Christ, which is what all the Theosophists believe. And they so wanted to make him be that. Excuse me. But he absolutely refused, and he went into retreat, and he formed a school where he could teach children how to be deeply present with life. So for all that they did, misidentifying a great teacher in Krishnamurti, they still claim that they're always right about stuff. So when I'm on chat tonight, because I think that claiming that you're always right about stuff when there isn't really evidence to show for it, is the essence of religiosity. It's the essence of turning something that, like paranormal research or paranormal experience or spiritual research or applied spiritual practice, it's the essence of turning it into dogma. You know, it's being religious for the sake of having a belief for the sake of saying that you belong somewhere. And it shows a kind of insecurity that, you know, you may not be okay if you don't get it right. Well, a lot of paranormal researchers and ghost researchers and UFOologists and alien abductees, we're like, yeah, it's not about getting it right. It's just about being present with it. So, and it's not about always being the most perfectly present or understanding what even needs to be done. Sometimes it's about being in the mystery and being present with it. And if you're a true Spaced Out Radio devotee, worshiping at the guru of SOR, or one of the gurus, or one of, you know, just the computer, because we are so not gurus, then you understand, you know, there's mystery, and there's something highly necessary about going into the mystery and looking in the mystery. You're finding out what the mystery is and going out and anomalous experience hunting. You know, you don't know what you'll find out there. Maybe you will find an alien. Maybe you will find Bigfoot. Maybe you'll just find a really good stone, and you'll take it home and say, I remember when I got that stone. That was when we were on that Bigfoot trip. I like that stone. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a way of being present in the world, of paying attention, of seeing what's out there, of seeing how much you can take in. And that was certainly something the Theosophists helped a lot of people who weren't doing that, who were reading a lot of books, learn through the writings of Krishnamurti and what many children learned in his school. So, no, not the second coming of Christ, but a really good man, a really good teacher. He ended up dying of cancer, and he refused to get treatment. And what he said about that was, when somebody asked him why he wouldn't get chemo or radiation to kill the cancer, was that it would be unkind. It would be uncompassionate to the cancer, because and he said, even cancer has to grow too. So, a very gentle person, very at peace with everything, very at peace with the world, but not the second coming of Christ. So when we talk about Space Brothers, I know from the Benjamin Creme interview that we did, there's quite a bit about the friendly Space Brothers and the coming of the world teacher. A lot of guru talk, a lot of savior talk, a lot of they're going to save us, he's going to save us, this spirit's going to save us, if you just do this, we will get saved. I'll try to be good on chat, but my personal opinion about that is that we all have the ability, with help, to become, bodhisattvas or saviors, or become helpers, or be compassionate. If we take into ourselves the teachings of compassionate beings like Jesus Christ, like Buddha, like Krishnamurti, we have this ability to do a lot on our own, and we may not need to look to other beings or other sources and call on them to become our saviors. So if you see me getting a little titchy, you've all been forewarned. I'm really opinionated. I'll be really opinionated when people be starting talking down to my peeps and telling them they can't do it on their own, or they can't learn on their own, or they can't follow their own path, because we all need to be doing this one thing so somebody can come in and save us. You'll be seeing me get titchy if that happens. But I'll try to be good. Dave, if you're listening, James, if you're listening, I promise I'll try to be good. And with that, what we're going to do is go into our wonderful Break Before You Show. Your little bumblefoot sends us on into Aartsen's Space Brother Talk. Love to you all. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I'll see you all on the other side. Good? Can't be good?
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month, where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings. No matter where you are, it's time for you to make time for you.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Tonight's edition of Spaced Out Weekend is brought to you by spacedoutradio.com, where you can now sign up to become a Space Traveler member. Now, for the final time tonight, here's Spaced Out Weekend's James Tyson. Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
It's time to go live on Spaced Out Weekend.
13, please. Oh, hi, Kevin. Oh, is that the time? Kevin, my friend, don't you find that watch just a little bit loud? Well, I certainly hope our buddy Bumblefoot is playing when we get there. Oh, you stinky big bundle of hair. I said Bumblefoot, not Bigfoot. Oh, it's going to be a long night.
It's time to head to the 13th floor of the old log cabin for Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson. You can tweet James at James Tyson SOR. You can find him on Instagram, Spaced Out Weekend, as well as on Facebook. On YouTube, our channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
And now, perched high in his captain's chair, way above the clouds, here's James Tyson.
Welcome back, everybody, to Spaced Out Weekend. Thanks for tuning in. It is I, James Tyson, still broadcasting from that little log cabin on the 13th floor of the Spaced Out Radio Network here in the paranormal portals of the lower left Canadian coast. And tonight, a very special guest, Gerard Aartsen, who has been a student of Ageless Wisdom teaching for over 35 years. His research into the teachings of the Masters of Wisdom resulted in a comprehensive annotated catalog, which he has published online as Our Elder Brothers Return, a History in Books. And that goes back to 1875 to the present. The author is a long-standing co-worker of Share International, a worldwide network of groups affiliated with Benjamin Creme, who is the main source of the information about the return of the world teacher and the masters of wisdom now, at the dawn of a new cosmic cycle. And we have here on this show, Gerard talked about the new dawn of the cosmic cycle and what is coming. So this is very interesting. His articles about the extraterrestrial presence on Earth have been published in Share International magazine and other publications, and he is a regular guest on radio talk shows in the US, the UK, Australia, the Netherlands, and gosh darn it now here in Canada, broadcasting into the US. And he's been talking about UFOs and the related subject. He also gives talks about the significance of the ET presence and its connection with the Ageless Wisdom teaching, and has lectured in America, Europe, and Asia. Now, Gerard Aartsen is a Master's of Education degree from the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands, where he has held a teaching position at the School of Education since 2001. In addition to education, the Ageless Wisdom teaching, and the extraterrestrial presence on Earth, he also has a keen interest in the Renaissance and modernist art. Hello, Gerard, and welcome. How are you over in the Netherlands?
Hello, James. I'm fine, thank you, and I'm really thrilled to be on your show.
We are
really good.
Darn thrilled to have you on here, and you have a number of books. And just offhand for the listener, if you want to, if you're scrolling along with us while you're listening, go to his website. It's bgapublications.nl. That's bgapublications.netherlands or .nl, and that is Gerard's website. And you can go through there and look at the number of publications he has. These are fabulous. Priorities for a Planet in Transition, The Space Brothers Case for Justice and Freedom. And that is available in French and Dutch. You can pick these up. Click on the links, click on the books on his website when you go through, look at his publications, articles, and book catalog of teachings. What, Gerard, got you involved in this? What opened your eyes to this type of research and this type of teaching?
What got me involved was when I was first introduced to the information coming from Benjamin Creme in 1978. I just graduated from secondary school, and I'd been traveling as a backpacker, and about 6 months after I came back from my first trip, I came across the first interview with Benjamin Creme in a Dutch magazine. And Mr. Creme had until then been giving talks in the UK. He's based in London, and had started his mission in 1974, but it wasn't until 1978 in the first interview in a Dutch magazine that I heard of his work. And somehow, even though at my very young age then, I suppose I was around 20, the things that he said made so much sense and really put the world picture together for me in terms of all the pieces of the puzzle. And he wasn't claiming to have the one and only truth. Rather, he pointed to several other sources, including Madame Blavatsky and Alice Ann Bailey. And from these, I gradually, and many other references that he gave in his first book that was published a year later in 1979, I became really interested in the Ageless Wisdom teaching, as they are called, and they've been given out since the work of Madame Blavatsky in the late 19th century in various stages and through various authors. And I personally consider Benjamin Creme's work the most recent exponent in this unfolding series of teachings. But what really got me interested in the extraterrestrial presence was when I'd already read some of George Adamski's books. And if people are not aware or not familiar with the name of George Adamski, he was the very first of the 1950s contactees to publish his story of contact, his personal experiences, and was discredited and defamed, etc., by an elaborate disinformation campaign. But when I found out that George Adamski had studied with the Masters of Wisdom as a teenager, and his first publication was not about UFOs or flying saucers, but a summary, you might say, of the wisdom teachings that he had received when he was in Tibet with the Masters of Wisdom, that really triggered my interest, and that started me off on this path of research that has resulted in my 3 books to date. And George Adamski's first book was titled Wisdom of the Masters of the Far East. And yes, that's really what triggered my research.
What George Adamski, now, did he go to the Far East and meet the Masters? This is prior or after his contact?
No, this is when he was a teenager. So he was born in, if I remember correctly, 1895. And, teenager, that would make it about 1910.
Okay.
Around about that time. And that was well before any recorded or published experiences of his with the people from space.
Okay, so he was at a point now he's opening his consciousness up, and possibly that could have led to why he was the one who was contacted, because that's interesting that he was open as a teenager and not really living in the East, like that would something.
Well, actually, my research shows that he was actually being trained for the mission that he would later become famous for, as a
Test for Revolution.
The herald, I call him in my first book, for the Space Brothers, and in fact he was an individual, a soul from Venus who incarnated on this planet for this particular mission. There are several tentative indications from people around him. He himself never made that claim that he originated from Venus, but there are several indications from people around him that make me believe that he was indeed a soul from Venus who incarnated here.
Okay. Now, you in your writings, you often quote or refer back to George Adamski, and these are, he was turn of the century. We're in the turn of the next century. Why do you feel they are still relevant to date?
Well, George Adamski's work that he became famous for didn't start until 1952, 1953. And he died in 1965, so it was around the beginning of the second half of the 20th century, and he became world famous for his claims of contact and the experience, his descriptions of his experiences, and especially the messages, the information that he received and wrote about, published in his second book about flying saucers inside the spaceships. And it's been republished. It's still in print from the George Adamski Foundation in the United States, but it's also very easy to find in as a secondhand book through secondhand bookshops. His work is absolutely relevant because it is. It's not time specific for the 1950s. We tend to think in decades and maybe half centuries, etc. But when you've studied the Ageless Wisdom teaching, you begin to think in longer cycles, and we have actually entered, according to all the information, the teaching that I'm familiar with, that I studied, we've entered the age of Aquarius, a new cosmic cycle. Very famous for the song from the 1960s, from the Hair musical, of course. But it's an actual fact. If you look at the movement of the solar system through the universe in relation to the various constellations of the zodiac, and for the past 2,000 odd years, this alignment of the solar system was with the constellation of Pisces, and it's not for nothing that the symbol of the fish can be found throughout the New Testament. Many of Jesus' followers were fishermen, and these cosmic cycles last about 2,150 years, and so we have already entered into this new alignment with the constellation of Aquarius, and that every cycle, according to the teachings, the wisdom teachings, is inaugurated by a teacher, a world teacher, who is sent from into the world from the group of masters, the masters of wisdom, who are really human beings, people like us, but who have perfected themselves and who have gone ahead of us on the path of evolution, and thereby perfected themselves to the point that they no longer need to incarnate on this planet. And most people who have reached that point move on to higher planets, higher systems, to continue their evolution there. But there's always a certain group of masters who stay behind to oversee the evolution of the rest of us and to inspire humanity with to make the right choices, etc. And so far, of course, especially in the last 150 years, we haven't really been able to make the most of that. But the masters have always sent a teacher from their midst into the world at the end or the beginning of a new age, just as the Christ worked through Jesus in Palestine 2,000 years ago, and before him the Buddha worked through the Prince Gautama, and we had Krishna before that, and there's many other historical figures, but also figures who have become mythological figures, because there's no written history, or it's been too long ago in the memory of mankind. So this is an ongoing cycle of revelation at the beginning of each new cosmic cycle, and this dawn of this age of Aquarius, of this new age, is no different in that respect. And Benjamin Creme's information has been that the teacher for the new age has arrived in his center in the modern world in 1977. And mind you, the masters and the master of all the masters, the world teacher, have never left the world. They've always been here. The masters as a group have retreated from the world towards the end of the Atlantean civilizations, some 98,000 years ago. But they've always been on the planet. They've always guided and inspired humanity from behind the scenes. And this time, this new age, this turn of cosmic ages, is very special in the sense that this time it will not just be the teacher himself who has come into the world and will be known very soon, according to Benjamin Creme's information, but he will return this time with a group of masters of wisdom. So we will have a whole group of these enlightened men ready to help the world, to advise humanity, to make the right choices for our future. And to come back to your question, it's this momentous time in history that has triggered, you might say, the presence of so many spacecraft and so many visitors from space. They're not here, as many people seem to think, to give humanity a nice paranormal phenomenon to speculate about and to get excited about or scared for. They are here in support of a unique time in the history of this planet, where humanity will be going through a crisis, is going through a crisis of consciousness, as is witnessed by the many crises, ecological, economic, financial, political, which is really the effect of these new energies streaming into the planet, and we still living in the old structures that have resulted from the old energies from the previous age. And in support of this transition from the old age into the new, the UFOs are here in support also of the return of the teacher and the group of elder brothers of humanity into public view.
What do you think the connection is with the masters that will be coming and are here, and those who we believe come from different dimensions or different planets? We'll call it in the UFO group. What are the connection between those two groups, from the Masters of Wisdom to the...
I'm not sure about masters coming from other dimensions.
No, the UFO is coming from other dimensions. So.
Yes, George Adamski has written about meeting a master from Venus and a master from Saturn in his book Inside the Spaceships, and they are basically individuals from those planets at a comparable stage of evolution as our elder brothers, the Masters of Wisdom on our planets. So, life is everywhere. Life is not the result of a chemical accident in the backwaters of the Milky Way, but life is everywhere, even if we don't see it everywhere, because it's usually outside our range of vision. And life expresses itself through the evolution of consciousness, and that takes place everywhere, on the atomic level and on the galactic level. Excuse me. The space people, the space brothers, the people visiting us from other planets are here in support, as I said, to help humanity guide humanity through this time of transition. And sometimes, some of them will be masters from other worlds, and they are all brothers, brothers and sisters from other planets, just as the Masters of Wisdom, who, from our point of view, might seem like gods, given their relative perfection. They are also our brothers. They are our elder brothers, as I said, who've gone ahead in evolution, but we are all involved in the same process of return to the source, in the same process of perfecting ourselves through the daily trials and errors of daily life in this imperfect world. So, what we see here has already taken place on the higher planets in our solar system.
Now, talking about Benjamin Creme again, he has information from his contacts that the Masters, he's got actually pretty much detailed information on the Masters. Who does he believe? Can we name the Master? Like, I think is it Maitreya was the one he was thinking of, or who is that in the great scheme of things?
Maitreya is the personal name of the world teacher, the master of all the masters.
Oh, okay.
Maitreya is the individual, the name of the individual who was really acting as the Christ through Jesus. He holds the office of the Christ on this planet, and of course Christians know him as the Christ. But other religions know him by other names. The Buddhists expect him as the fifth Buddha. The fourth Buddha came through Gautama, the Prince Gautama, and Maitreya is actually named by Gautama as the fifth Buddha, who will come in the future, seen from those days. So the Hindus are expecting the 10th incarnation of Vishnu or Kalki avatar. Sections of Islam await the return of the teacher that disappeared, the Mahdi who disappeared, the Imam Mahdi or the 12th Mahdi. And of course the Jews are still waiting for the Messiah. So different religions have different names, and it was the Buddhists who had the name correct. And so Maitreya is the name of the world teacher. Benjamin Creme receives his information through his very close contact, moment-to-moment telepathic rapport with the Master of Wisdom, who he calls his master. As people advance on the path of evolution, they are taken under the care, become part of the ashram, as it's called, a group around a master. And these are, so far, they are not physical groups. They're not physical people who meet in the physical body, but this all happens on the soul level, and very often not even consciously. But in Benjamin Creme's case, because of his mission, he was contacted in 1959 by his master, one of the Masters of Wisdom, a very close associate also of the world teacher, and prepared for his mission to inform the world of the return of the teacher and the Masters of Wisdom. So his day-to-day contact is with one of the Masters of Wisdom, but he is also been asked at the time between 1977 and 1982 to give a number of messages directly from the world teacher, from Maitreya, which he did during his weekly lectures in London, and they've been transcribed and published in a book. Very, very interesting and very moving, often very, very inspiring. Yes, that's the.
That's who Maitreya is.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's interesting. I was wondering, as you were talking about the master that was with him, and those who come for those people who are, and I think you coined, or you stated that it was advancing in evolution. We have people now that are referred to as star children or indigos. Would those people be in that kind of position of like the newer human, a little more advanced in evolution?
Yes, it's well, I'm certainly not at the level of masters, but
correct.
It is clear that in this new age, and to bring about the new age and the structures that we need to give expression to our expanded consciousness and expanding consciousness, people will be incarnating who have advanced a little more than average humanity, and according to the information coming from Benjamin Creme, there's an increasing number of those people coming into incarnation. We hear of an increasing number of people with certain abilities, perhaps etheric vision, or more telepathically sensitive, etc. Of course, we should remember that there's a lot of glamour and illusion and fantasy going around as well, simply because of the ignorance of most people in terms of what is really going on. But people do see that consciousness is expanding, people becoming more sensitive, people are certainly aware of the need for change, and are increasingly standing up and being counted calling for change, for justice and freedom, etc. These are all indications that great changes are afoot.
Yeah, I was curious about the Star Children and the Indigos, primarily because I was thinking that now people who are a little bit more open or sensitive in that way, we talk about having spirit guides, and we talk about having our primary guides. I was wondering if that would be similar to the beginning of being introduced to a master and getting used to that, kind of picking those chosen people who will be literally getting a download from something, getting used to, and in my case, it was 2012. I was introduced to my primary spirit guide, who is not of Earth. I've interviewed people who've had contact, who report contact with extraterrestrials, and their contact with what Mr. Creme and you call space brothers. Their reports of it are not a happy report. They're like being taken and hurt and by various types, primarily what is called the Greys, the little ones, but other contacts with the taller, the Nordics and things like that are very peaceful and very open, and lots of communication and education from them. But it's the grummy little gray ones that seem to be the ones that people run into and describe pain and discomfort and stress. What is it? What is your opinion on the notion of alien abductions for experiments, gene harvesting, hybrid breeding, etc.?
Yeah, I don't know if my opinion matters much, but if you sit, just think about it for a minute. If these people are indeed able to cross vast distances in space, maybe not intergalactic distances, because I personally believe they're from planets in our own solar system, but still, it takes us, how long does it take us? 18 months to get a probe to Mars or something. And these people seem to be able to travel around in highly sophisticated craft. If you have that technology where you can travel yourself on a craft between planets, doesn't it strike us as slightly odd that they would be so backward in biology? Why would they be, not be able to, or why would they know less about our biology than their knowledge about traveling space? To me, it just doesn't make much sense. Again, I come to the point of the evolution of consciousness, and I'm not saying that all the planets or every expression of life throughout the solar system or indeed the galaxy is farther advanced than we are in the evolution of consciousness. On Earth we have people who have gone way ahead of us, the Masters of Wisdom, but also they're initiates of the wisdom and the advanced disciples that we recognize in the world as great leaders, such as the Nelson Mandelas and the famous scientists and artists and composers and you name them. And we also have the people who are not far advanced at all and who bear witness to a very limited consciousness. And so it is in space. Some planets are far more advanced and others are not at all as advanced as we are on Earth. It seems that for the solar system, according to the information from the Masters of Wisdom, Earth is about midway. And that's why this is a very critical point. And that is also why Benjamin Creme says that this planet has been protected now for quite a while against the influences, the influences of evil forces or less evolved beings from space. And interestingly, I found a corroboration of that statement by Mr. Creme in the work in one of the articles by Wilbert Smith, the famous Canadian UFO researcher. It's yes, we are visited. The ones that, the abduction experiences, the painful experiences of people, I believe, do not necessarily have any relation to the extraterrestrial presence. We do know for a fact that after the original contacts in the 1950s, George Adamski, Truman Bethrum, Buck Nelson, Orfeo Angelucci, and several others in the United States, Dino Crasvedon in Brazil, several people in Italy that we know of, that were all benign, who all said that they had been told of the dangers of nuclear energy, nuclear weapons, that had been told of the need for international cooperation to solve the problems on this planet. Because these messages came in the midst of the Cold War, when both the Soviet Union and the United States, as the major exponents in that Cold War, were seeking the active support from their respective populations. These messages were, seen as a disturbance. They were seen as undermining the mobilization of public opinion for their respective causes. And we know for a fact that from the mid-1950s onwards, what started as a cover-up, for instance, of the crash in Roswell, turned into a deliberate disinformation campaign. And I hold that a part of that disinformation campaign, and Dr. Stephen Greer in America has found ample evidence that this has indeed been the case, and perhaps is still the case, that people have been given contact or abduction experiences not by extraterrestrials, visitors from space, but by special agents from dark, secret government agencies, military operations, with very negative experiences. And we can see why, because, in those days, because the Cold War extended up until the late 1980s, it was in the interest of the powers that be, the military and the governments, and even more so the powers behind the government, to not allow people, or at least try to confuse people about the intentions of space visitors. First of all, to try and either ridicule the original contactees and perhaps confuse or otherwise scare the general public about the reality of the visitors from space. So when you ask me about abductions, I think there are a number of explanations. First of all, a number of people who say they may have been abducted may simply be employing the terminology that we find in the media or in articles from less discerning publications that call everything that has to do with extraterrestrial contact an abduction. Yeah, they could well be a benign contact. A very clear example in this case would be the contact experience of Kirsan Ilyumzhinov, who is the president of the World Chess Federation. And at the time, he was also the president of the Russian Republic of Kalmykia of the Russian Federation. So a high-standing figure, and he spoke out about his experiences several times. And one time, when he was interviewed for British TV, and that was reported in the press, they called it an abduction, while he himself had never used that word. Yeah, so that may be one explanation. Another explanation is what I just mentioned, where people may have been abducted by special agencies with the aim to confuse and scare the public, and given experiences through the administration of drugs or hypnosis. Also, there's a powerful thought form that has built up about alien abductions, and some people just have a very active astral imagination, and they may be tuning into that thought form and live these very vivid fantasies or dreams that are dreams, but because as George Adamski said, dreams are real to the dreamer, but not actually real in real life. So I can't deny those people their experiences, but I think there are alternative explanations.
Okay. That I was curious about that, because Elizabeth Anglin, who is on before me on my show, Elizabeth reported an abduction when she was a child, which was witnessed by her neighbors, her literally being taken by a group outside of her home and gone for X amount of, a couple of hours and then brought back. But I was also wondering, would there be because of things like that in the description of these little gray men, could there actually be a group of space brothers that are a little more devious and a little more, we'll call it unsophisticated or just not the good ones? And could they be working in concert with these government agencies?
I personally don't believe the last part of your suggestion. There have been reports, clearly also, George Adamski has said so, Benjamin Creme has said so, there's been others who have made statements to that effect, that there are beings from other planets who we would think of as rather evil, but apparently, they are not as far advanced as we are, and yet they are able to travel space, and that may seem an anomaly to us, but I think it has to do with the fact that as a species from their planet, they have not made the mistakes that we have made, in the sense that we have bought into this whole notion of being separate from one another. And these beings from other planets, not as far advanced, may have selfish interests, but on a communal level. But again, Benjamin Creme has said, and Wilbert Smith has made similar statements through his contacts, that those visits have stopped, have been ended. Humanity is going through such a crucial time in our evolution that we are being protected at this time, and bad experiences, even when those people that we might consider evil were able to visit us, I doubt if they came here for experiments or hybrid breeding or anything like that, because of several reasons. One of which, for instance, is that life on the other planets in our solar system takes place on the etheric physical planes of matter, which are, and I'm going back to the Ageless Wisdom teaching here, the subtle planes of matter above the three that our science knows and recognizes: the dense physical, the liquid physical, and the gaseous physical. And these etheric planes of matter, the subtle planes of matter, is where the atomic particles or subatomic particles vibrate at a higher frequency than at the level below. So that's why, for instance, we've sent a rover to Mars which is at about apparently the same stage in evolution as Earth is, and we don't find clear evidence there. We don't. The rover doesn't see any cities or people or anything else there, because life on Mars and on the other planets in our solar system is not on the dense physical level. If people find it hard to believe this, we should remember that science itself has stated that 96% of the known universe it cannot account for. Yes, astrophysical calculations indicate that the mass of the universe should be such and such in total, but 96% of that total our science cannot pinpoint, cannot give an explanation for. We call it calls it dark matter, dark energy. At the same time, there have been avant-garde scientists like Wilhelm Reich, Dr. Wilhelm Reich, Rupert Sheldrake, British biologist, who from different angles have been experimenting and have been giving proof and hypotheses of the existence of what science calls dark matter, what the Ageless Wisdom calls the etheric planes of matter. So, knowing that life on the other planets takes place on those higher planes of matter, it's impossible for anyone to come here and then do hybrid breeding. It doesn't make sense. There's no logic to it.
Yeah, I've been exposed to or dealing with my own spirit guides. It's reaching them where I can communicate with them is a mix of them bringing down their vibration and me increasing mine. And I work on increasing mine through things like meditation and just concentration. They have a higher energy, or as you were, a higher vibration, and they have to actually lower it for us to, communicate. It's only happened a couple of times with me where I've been able to. I've got messages. The only way I can explain it is being downloaded, and I see them. I see a number of images that mean certain things in an order, a specific order, and I can't explain those to anyone because I've never seen an image in my mind that looked like these before. So I know that that is stuff, or that is information that I'm being told for a reason, and you make your notes of it and you write it down and see where that's relevant in your life. So I understand that the vibration and the communication. Now, if we were going to, if you were a being from another planet or even a solar system that was in the etheric side and your vibration is so high that you aren't physically seen by us low vibration people. I wonder if there's a way for them to drop their vibration so we could see them.
Oh yes, and I mean that's quite clear that there is a way for them. They apparently traveling in their craft and being at the stage in evolution that they are they are able to lower the rate of vibration of the molecules, the atoms of their bodies and their craft to a frequency where we can see them, and that's how UFOs or flying saucers, motherships become visible. And that's why they can become visible in an instant or disappear in an instant, where we don't even see, where eyewitnesses say they didn't even see them leave, they were just gone. And that's a matter of it's being called flipping a switch. I don't know if they have an actual switch, but it's changing the rate of vibration. And in fact, Howard Menger, one of the contactees of the 1950s, wrote an interesting book called From Outer Space to You. He actually describes, I found a description in that book of the procedure used by the space visitors to get him on board. Apparently, George Adamski was aware of the distinction between the dense physical forms of, expressions of life, of life forms, bodies, and the etheric counterparts. But his mission was to inform the world that they are actual physical beings, even though, etheric physical, subtle physical, but physical nonetheless. And Howard Menger describes how, or his contact describes how they have this beam which was used to increase the frequency of his body, or actually take his waking consciousness from his physical body into his etheric body, the etheric counterpart of his physical body, in which he can then enter the ship. And when that happens, the physical body of the person who is invited on board is put to sleep, so to speak, and protected, so that others cannot come round and find it and try to wake it up, because that would be dangerous. And the person can then come on board a flying saucer or a mothership, and perhaps travel in space around the solar system for a number of days. And so there's various tentative indications of this the reality of these etheric planes of matter, even in the descriptions of people who have been on board, not knowing that they were taken out of the physical into the etheric body, about an expanded sense of awareness and a heightened sense of well-being, etc.
Oh, fascinating. Now, flipping through the pages of your book, Here to Help UFOs and the Space Brothers, there are photographs in there of an extraterrestrial pilot and the control cabin of a flying saucer. Where did you get those photos from? Who took those, or who made those?
Excuse me. Yes, these photos. That's an interesting story. These photographs I found in some rather rare books that were published by an Italian diplomat by the name of Alberto Perego. And Alberto Perego been a career diplomat all his life in the service of the Italian government. And he became involved in what has become known as the Amicizia case, or the friendship case. And the friendship case started in 1956. And I give a rather comprehensive description of that in chapter 4 of my book, Here to Help. Alberto Perego was very interested in the flying saucer phenomenon. He collected all kinds of newspaper reports, magazine reports about sightings and contact experiences. He was in close contact with George Adamski. They corresponded, and they met once in Rome. And being a diplomat, I personally think, and also being one of over 120 Italians involved in this friendship case of ongoing contact that started in 56 but went on well into the 1970s, and involved university professors, engineers, accountants, all kinds of people from all walks of life. Being a diplomat and coming by these photographs, I personally think that the photographs were made by Bruno Ghibaudi, who was a journalist, an aviation and science journalist, and who was also a participant in the friendship case. But his name was not attached to these photographs when Perego published them in his books. But that is the most likely conclusion I can draw. But the fact that a diplomat chooses to publish these photos in his books, to me shows that they must be genuine, knowing also that, about the friendship case, and the fact that he was then sent to Belo Horizonte to isolate him more or less from people in Europe, where he could be in much, it was much easier to be in touch with other UFO buffs and people interested in the phenomenon. This was the 1950s, 60s, so we didn't have faxes yet, let alone the internet or email. And he was more or less isolated there in South America. So yeah, for me, that these are clear signs that these were authentic photographs. Fascinating, and they've never been reproduced outside of his books. And I actually came across first knew about these photographs through a very interesting documentary, which is available for free now on YouTube. And I think you can find it under the Friendship Case, and it's a documentary for about 50 minutes. And I would recommend it to everyone.
Okay, and it's under, if we go to YouTube, we can, or just query or search the Friendship Case?
The Friendship Case or the Amicitia Case. And it has English subtitles, if I remember correctly, or else it's dubbed in English. And in that documentary, there's a quick flash of a page of photographs of the interior of the cabin of a flying saucer from Alberto Perego's book. And when I found out about that, when I first saw that, I started looking, and being a bibliophile, I love books, and I've collected all the books from the original contactees, which I consider my primary sources. Because they were published and written before the start of the disinformation campaign. I was lucky enough to find at least the two books that carry these photographs, and since there's no copyright, they were never published in the English world, English speaking world. I thought them of sufficient importance to reproduce them in my book, Here to Help, UFOs and the Space Brothers.
Excellent. That is brilliant, and I recommend, if anybody who is a UFO buff or wants to know a little bit more about anything from the 50s on and are interested, to definitely go to the website, Gerard's website, bgapublications.nl, track down a copy of Here to Help, UFOs and the Space Brothers. It's fascinating books, fascinating research by a fascinating person, Gerard Aartsen. We're going to be back with more from Gerard right after this quick break. Actually, it's not a quick break. You got 7 minutes. Grab yourself a beer. I'll meet you back here in the old log cabin with more from Gerard. See you soon.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter,
Welcome back to the last hour of Spaced Out Weekend. We are with Gerard Aartsen. Before the break, we were talking about a diplomat. Who was this famous, non-famous person who was invited underground?
Alberto Perego, who wrote books about the UFO phenomenon that he was deeply interested in. And he was one of many high-standing figures. There were professors, university professors. Bruno Samasic himself was a professor and a theologist and a psychologist. The journalist Bruno Gibauri, I mentioned him already. A painter was involved, and many other people with let's call them regular jobs. So it's a fascinating account in Mass Contacts, and what I found really interesting is that it had branches not just around Europe but also across the globe. And especially in Here to Help UFOs and Space Brothers, I go into a number of these branches that were not necessarily known to the people in Italy, but that have very similar characteristics in terms of the kind of contact going on, and as well as the name in South America. So it's apart from the fact that the friendship group were asked, in different constellations to work and help the space visitors, is very similar to the Get Acquainted program that was set up by George Adamski in 1956 at the suggestion of Adamski's space visitors, in which he was asked to, set up a network of people in anywhere around the world where people were interested in his story, because his was the first story to go international with several translations in the first year. Within the first year of his book and his story being published in 1953. So when was it? 1959, I believe. There were 22 contacts in 17 countries already, and Alberto Perego was one of them in Italy. And the idea, if you read Mass Contacts, the book about the friendship case, and when you read the instructions or the reasons for Adamski setting up the Get Acquainted program, they're very similar in tone and intention of bringing people together. Anyone interested in the extraterrestrial presence should work to develop an understanding for their fellow human beings. So it's about respect and tolerance towards people who may look different, but who are still people. So that's another very, very important similarity, I believe.
It's amazing with you. When you start to look at the number of things that went on over time, and people's experiences were, documented, and it's a good collection. One of the kind of semi-amusing stories was when a being named, I think it was Dim Pietro,
yes.
Yeah, 3 meter tall extraterrestrial, commonly referred to by his friends as the Poplar, which were about as big as a tree. And he wanted to introduce himself to Bruno's wife. And when she came home, she found him sitting on the kitchen floor in her flat in Milan, because he didn't want to scare her with his height. Unfortunately, when she saw him, the human Poplar, in her kitchen, she was so frightened that she fled into the bedroom and just basically stayed there until her husband came home.
Right.
And Dim Pietro was or said to be the commander of the largest base in central eastern Italy. And there were smaller bases around below Lake Como, near Milan, Bologna, Rome, Pescara, Veneto, all over the place. So, when you go, and these are all underground bases, and this is one of those, those questions for me. Is there a door, or is there, you go out and then when you go to the basement, it just keeps going? Or like, what is the method from going to and from?
Yeah, well, the clearest description that I found in Mass Contact was where when the participants, the people who were invited downstairs, so to speak, they describe how a hole opened in the ground, and they were directed to put their feet in certain places, even though they couldn't see anything. They didn't see any steps or anything, but as they put their feet there, they could feel steps, and that's how they went down. So there's a similar description in a book, and I forget the gentleman's name, another Italian contactee, Maurizio something. His book is called Beyond the Heavens, who describes being taken out on a boat, and then the sea or the water, the body of water where they are, forms into a column that then sort of ends up in an opening, and the boat goes down that way. The only thing I can think of is how they manage to manipulate the dense physical appearance of the location where the entrance is, so that people who have no business there will not see an entrance, and perhaps it's not open, probably it's not open then, but if people need to come in or go out, it's a matter of, it's almost like flipping a switch, and the opening appears, becomes visible, and even ordinary mortals like ourselves are able to find their way in. It's mysterious.
Well, I wonder if we go back to the first half here and talking about vibration and the manipulation with vibrations.
Well, the etheric planes, yes.
Yeah, the etheric planes, yeah.
Because, what we see and experience as a physical reality is basically, I believe I mentioned it already, the precipitation onto the lowest possible level of frequency of forms that originate on the etheric planes of matter. And the etheric planes of matter are more subtle because the frequency of the atoms or the subatomic particles is higher on those planes, consecutively. There's 4 of those etheric planes, and on each of them the particles vibrate at a higher level than at the level below. The extraterrestrials coming from the higher planets, and our probes, and we now have this wonderful probe orbiting Jupiter since a couple days. Our probes don't see anything on Mars or on Venus, and most likely not on Jupiter, on the physical planes, and that's because life on, as far as I know, most of the other planets, almost all of the other planets, is not manifesting at such a low vibration as it is here on Earth. So the people from the other planets who come here and who create their bases underground, they apparently are able to manipulate the dense physical atoms in order to create the space that they need, and therefore also any entrance. Just because they know and they live on those etheric planes of matter, which fall out of our range of vision at this time in our development, in our evolution, and they can just manipulate them because it's just matter. Matter can be manipulated. Many sages and high initiates have been known to do similar things. The avatars in the East, but also high initiates like Madame Blavatsky has, people in her immediate circle have described what ordinary people would call miracles. But if you know a bit more about the nature of reality, it's about being able to manipulate the physical material reality, which is only the lowest reflection, the lowest precipitation. If you know more about the laws of life and the laws of physics, therefore, it's easy to manipulate them.
Okay. And that's unfortunately none of the things that I know about. So I'm not going to be able to manipulate a darn thing. It's
we can flip the electric switch and the light comes on. That's a level of manipulation of light that we didn't have. That my grandmother remembers. She died many years ago, but I remember her telling stories when electricity first came to her house, and before that they didn't have that kind of manipulation. Now it's we don't even give it any thought. When we come home, we switch on the light. But so that is let's call it a low level of manipulation of the laws of physics, and these creating these underground bases and entrances, etc., or the spacecraft being able to transport between or travel between planets, etc., and lowering their rate of vibration so that they become visible to us. That's the same kind of manipulation of other laws of physics, perhaps on a higher level.
When I have a friend of mine, actually I have a few friends of mine who state they went through an abduction, and one was witnessed by not only the abductee, but the neighbors. There was a commotion outside, a light, what we'd call it, no sound per se, but a light commotion. And it was in the middle of the night, and the neighbors all poked out the window, and there was their neighbor kind of floating out on the lawn with a bunch of strange little people around her, and then they just vanished. And she shows up 10 hours later or something, but she's a very sensitive person, and during that she remembers pretty well everything that happened. But when she shows up back at home, the police are there, the neighbors are all out in their house coats, and they're pointing and crying and sobbing, and because they don't know what they've seen. So that's the kind of thing I look at as being that lowering the vibration to a point where there is a physical contact, and then raising it to a point where now they're gone for us to see. But that's also a transfer of vibration onto the person they're quote unquote abducting, because that person has a low vibration. So I guess they have the ability to manipulate the surrounding area and the surrounding vibration or frequencies.
Well, yes, it's interesting because Howard Menger describes the procedure of being taken out of the body, as it's called. Being used to living in the dense physical world that we know on this planet, we are not aware of the fact that our consciousness, the paranormal researchers, etc., and even some more mainstream scientists are looking into the possibility of life after death, and they're trying to see if they can see the soul leave the body, etc. The soul being the seat of consciousness, of course. And what happens when somebody is invited on board a spaceship? I don't personally use the word abduction, as we discussed in the first hour, because I don't think anybody would ever be taken against their will by these people. But what happens is that they have a procedure that will help the person involved to raise their consciousness out of the physical body into their etheric body and help them separate the etheric body from the dense physical body, so that they can be taken on board the which is in etheric matter. Of course, they can lower it temporarily. The molecules, the atoms of the ship visible can be sighted, etc. But in order for them to go anywhere with an Earth person on board, the Earth person can only enter in their etheric body. And so what you describe of what happened to your neighbor, I think it's been described before, and Howard Menger describes it. We have very famous cases of Travis Walton, for instance, whose story first was published as an abduction, and later on he made a statement. He released a statement in an interview on YouTube saying that it was more of an ambulance call. And that's how words that people often for sensationalism, etc., become ingrained in our thinking, in our speaking about things. Separate their etheric body from their physical body. Most of us are not even aware that we have an etheric body, or that the physical body is a precipitation of our etheric body. But when they do that, they protect the physical body, so that it won't be found by someone who's then worried and thinks the person may have died and try to resuscitate them. They protect it, maybe make it invisible for the time being, so that the person can be, can come on board and be taken on a trip, whatever the purpose of the visit to the ship is, without being disturbed in their physical body, because there's always a connection where even if the ship goes to Jupiter, there's always a connection, energetic connection between the physical body and the etheric body, or else the person will die.
Yeah, that's usually the downfall. You don't want that happen in anything.
Exactly.
if you're doing experiments on anything, you really don't want them to die.
No,
because you have to explain it to everybody up the food chain. These, unfortunately, these experiments, whether they're experiments or just tapping into, and I should qualify this. A lot of these times, or a lot of the people that they've taken, that I'm aware of, are people that you would call higher vibrational people anyway. Very empathetic, empaths, psychic, people who are maybe a genius level at a certain topic. They aren't, and I'm sure there are what I would call Joe Sixpack walking down the street, but there's something about that person that is different from the rest of the people around them. Mm-hmm. And they may never know the reason that they're different from those around them, whether they have extremely low vibration, or they're very high vibration. But I believe and this is just going on in the limited amount of people that I've spoken to, is that there is something there and had been there before their experience. And as a result of this experience, for those who are a little bit more awakened in themselves and have a greater sensitivity, that sensitivity actually raises after the experience. It's like there was something left in there that opened that up a little more. Almost like the near-death experiencers we hear of who weren't psychic until they had the near-death experience, and now after they recover from their near-death experience, now they can see images and hear voices and eventually find that they're actually that in tuned with other energies.
Yes, and that actually, chimes with what the early contactees described after that contact. Everybody who has come into contact with these beings, whether they were invited on board or not, and of course it varies depending on the depth of the experience, but everyone reports that their consciousness, their awareness has expanded, and it will never go back to the old state. So yes, it seems to be a common experience as a result, a common trait as a result of such experiences.
Well, that is something maybe I should open myself up and ask for an experience, because I would like to be a little more in tune. But then again, do I really want to put that out there and end up having some gnarly little grays show up, as opposed to something that's a little more peace-loving and aren't going to, I'm not going to end up like a mutilated cow somewhere. Which, I'm being facetious, but it's once you put that energy out there that you wouldn't mind contact, and you don't know what door you're opening.
Well, I think I mentioned it already. I think we're pretty safe on the extraterrestrial part. The people that we should be concerned about and worried about are humans on this planet. The things that we do to ourselves, to our species, to our habitat. And the species that we share this planet with, we do so much harm, not only to our fellow human beings, even to ourselves, often unknowingly, that we would do better, I believe, to be cautious about how we go about life, how we approach others, how we think. And that's another very interesting similarity in all the stories of contact. The people who have been contacted always come back saying that we should be really careful about our thoughts and watch our thoughts, because everything that we do and that we say results from thoughts. So if we can control our thoughts, our thinking, we will be much less harmful in our attitudes and in our relations.
Oh yeah, that would be a nice way to go. Yeah, it's the negative thoughts that not only really affect us as individuals, but you have to understand that those negative thoughts they're broadcast and are taken in from those around us. We're talking to Gerard Aartsen. He is a writer, and if you want to find some of his books, actually go to his website, BGA, Bravo Golf Alpha, BGA Publications.nl. Look at the books that he has there and his publications, and you can pick up his books. Like the newest one here is Priorities for a Planet in Transition, and you can pick that up at any of the online booksellers, Amazon, that type of thing. We'll be right back with more from Gerard Aartsen right after this. Okay, that's good. There is every so often there's a delay, but like a 2-second, 3-second delay. But when it kicks back in, it's basically throwing a delay in a full sentence. So it's not like it's cutting out anything. It's just a delay and it comes back. So I can go in and edit those out after.
Oh, that's good. I heard I had a delay from you only once, but you've had several.
Well, because you talked longer than I did.
I talk more, yes.
Which is good.
Why is that?
Because you're the one who's supposed to be talking.
Oh, okay.
What and where would you like to go from here on the? I did want to kind of touch. Oh shoot, I teased my listener and we never went with it. The dog Dick. Yeah.
Well, we can go back to the dog from these negative things, because I can come back to. You were talking about experiments and mutilations, etc. And implants is another thing that the visitors are being, accused of very often. And the dog, of course, is a very good example of what type of implants. Or real implants might be from extraterrestrials.
Perfect.
To facilitate communication, for instance.
Going back to Bruno and his experiences, I teased the audience a bit with what had happened to his dog. Can you kind of, I could say, amplify or expand on that for the listener?
Yes, it's a rather interesting and in a way a funny story, part of the Amicizia story. Bruno Samicizia, the Italian protagonist in the friendship case, had a German Shepherd, which he called Dick, D-I-K, The dog went with him around various places, apparently. And one time, Bruno and his friends were walking on the beach, and the German Shepherd was with them. And the extraterrestrials, I should say, as an explanation, had developed, had given Bruno and his friends certain items to facilitate communication, and it was rather precise, and it involved them wearing things in their shoes, and in order to make communication a bit easier, they asked Bruno at some point to send his dog into the sea. So the dog went into the sea, or maybe they I don't remember now. Maybe they what's the word? They suggested to the dog in a way so that he would go into the sea. And he found quite suddenly, and Bruno, of course, was concerned, but the space people told him not to worry. They had only implanted the nuclei into his paws to facilitate communication. And I thought it was a really interesting, very likely authentic case of implants, that may be used. They said they reassured Bruno that the dog would have no pain or discomfort from these implants because they're so tiny, so small. But because there are so many stories of implants and people, having been operated or things being taken out of their bodies. But I think it's important to remember that when you're taken on board a ship, you can only be taken on board in your etheric physical body, not your dense physical body. So when you come back, there won't be anything there can't be anything in your dense physical body. And of course, as we talked about, the secret agents who through the decades have been staging malicious, nefarious abduction experiences to confuse and scare people about the space visitors. Many of these may have involved implanting things into people. Just for the reason, just to scare them. But this little episode with Bruno's dog might point to cases where things had been implanted on the dense physical level with the consent, of course, of the person involved. And perhaps this was taken out of context again and used against the visitors in these many shady and more dark episodes of fake contact, military abductions, etc., etc. But it's a very and mass contact is full of these kind of fascinating episodes and experiences.
I have just a question to throw out there. If you've been involved in if a citizen's been involved in a fake contact by the government, just trying to frighten them, why does the government then try to silence them?
I don't know if the government is trying to silence them. I suppose the government would try to silence people who want to come out with, the real story. But at the same time, I'm sure the government is also encouraging people to come out with stories that are based either on implanted memories through hypnosis or drugs, or misinformation that was placed perhaps in folders that these people were given access to, and now I can tell the world that this and that is going on, when nothing of the sort was real or true, because this what's going on is the disinformation campaign. So anything that happened from the start of that campaign in the mid-1950s, we do not know if it's true or not. And the only way for us to ascertain which bits of information coming from contact claims after the mid-1950s are potentially true or authentic. We can only establish that by comparing them with all the similarities in the stories of the early contactees. Because and I think I mentioned that also, if abductions are an authentic, if there are abductions as well as benign contact experiences, then there's no reason why there wouldn't have been abductions before the start of the disinformation campaign, and there aren't any, in the accounts of the early contactees, and that's what's so important and what people shouldn't forget.
Okay, yeah, the one that always amazes me, or why it's not talked about as much, is the Pope John the 23rd in the early 60s and his experience in the garden of a summer castle, where a scout ship or a saucer that landed at the south end of the garden. He witnessed it. His assistant or whoever else was there witnessed it. And there was alleged to be a conversation with the Pope and whoever was in the ship for, 15, 20 minutes. And the Pope comes back saying, our brothers are everywhere, but sometimes, we have difficulty recognizing them. Is that incident ever written by him? Was it ever articulated by him?
It was
in a large format, or is it the assistant told another assistant? Did the Pope ever come out publicly and say that?
No, and I don't think he would have been asked to do so. The story has come out through his assistant, who was there, the eyewitness, Loris Capovilla, and he told it. I don't know if he told it to the bishop, Higinio Alas Gomez, who I think who brought it back into public attention at a conference, a Roman Catholic conference in South America, many, many years later. But it has been going around for a good while through this eyewitness. But we must remember, just as the Christ or the world teacher or somebody of that stature wouldn't ask the Pope or the Queen or the President to tell the world that he has returned. So the space brothers, the space visitors, wouldn't ask, especially not in this world, governments or someone like the Pope or the Queen maybe the Queen they might, but the Pope, his role is different, and they again, I can't emphasize it enough, they have so much respect for human free will and our freedom of thought. If the Pope would come out and say the space people are here, they are real, they come from other planets, millions of people would instantly believe it just simply because the Pope says it. Mm-hmm. And that is not, that's not respecting free will. That's how humanity works at this stage in our evolution. Lots of people look to others, to their leaders for authority. So they not only accept their authority, but they also defer their own responsibility for their lives to this authority figure, whether it's the Pope or the Dalai Lama or someone else. And much the same as many people around the world would do once the space people would make themselves known, would land en masse, and many people who have been waiting for contact will then say, "Oh, there you are! Now you can save us," and we'll sit still and do nothing, so that the space people can solve our problems for us. It doesn't work that way. We have to right the ills, the injustices in our world that we have created ourselves, and they are here in support. The Masters of Wisdom and the World Teacher, who the space visitors are here in support of, whose return they are here in support of, are here to inspire us and to help us in any way they can once we have indicated our willingness to take their advice. But we still have to do it ourselves.
Do you think that they respect us for our free will because they don't have any?
quite the opposite. They do so because they know that anything that is imposed cannot last. They know that free will is human beings around the cosmos. Anything else will have to fulfill their own destiny. Everything is interrelated and interconnected. Even scientists now know that there's not one single atom in the whole of the universe disconnected from any other atom around the universe. So everything is interconnected and interrelated at the deepest possible level, physically and on the consciousness level. It is up to every single individual through our journey on the path of evolution to recognize this interconnectedness and attune ourselves to the cosmic source, and our journey along that path of evolution is how we learn. That's where the law of karma, the law of rebirth come into play, and the law of harmlessness, right human relations, is something that will make us bump into other people and teaches us lessons until we get it right, and until we manage to establish right human relations with not just the people around us, our family or our neighbors, etc., our colleagues, but with everyone in the world, and respect everybody's own individual journey on that same path.
Oh, I see. It's a beautiful way of saying that we're all just the same. We're all the same person. We're all the same energy. Again, going back to our thoughts and how a pure thought is much better for our surroundings than a negative thought, because we're all connected. And if you've got one grumpy Gus in the neighborhood or somebody who's extremely negative, it does affect. I've got friends of mine who are prison guards, and they can have a lot of contact with, but they're in the vicinity of a bunch of people who are very negative. Some of them aren't, but the newer ones in jail are usually very, very negative. And the guards that I know will come home and they're just grumpy because but they haven't physically looked at or been around somebody with negative energy, or I shouldn't say been around them, but they haven't had contact with somebody with negative energy, but they come home with a chip on their shoulder sometimes, or just completely burnt out.
Yes.
And they've never, other than being within 100, 200 feet of somebody, they didn't have any interaction. So yeah, you could see how that vibration just carries out. Now, back to vibrations. I didn't want to interrupt you when you're talking about our space brothers pulling up our etheric body into, the lab, a spaceship, into one of the underground bases. When that happens, what happens in the cases of people like my friend, where their physical body is actually gone for 10 hours? Where is it stored while the spirit part of it goes away?
Yeah, well, when the etheric body is taken, when the person is taken into the ship, aboard the ship, invited aboard the ship in their etheric body, the physical counterpart, dense physical counterpart, is protected. And in most cases, I imagine that means being made invisible. And they have ways of doing that. I don't know if you've come across that part in my book Here to Help, where I reproduce a beautiful instance from the life of Madame Blavatsky when she had arrived, shortly after she had arrived in India. And she asked her assistant to join her. The journey was this was the late 19th century, and the journey, it was in Bombay, and the outskirts was by horse and carriage. And instead of giving an address, I need to go here, such and such place, she would ask her assistant, an Indian man, to tell the driver to turn left or right or go straight ahead to a place that the assistant had never seen in his life. Beautiful house, mansion with a beautiful rose garden on the outskirts of Bombay at the time. And he was so surprised that he told his friends about it after they came back. And the friend said, well, no, there's no such place. We've never heard of such a place here in Bombay. Bombay, of course, being much smaller then. And the assistant, his name was Mulji, said, no, I bet you it was there. I can even take you there because, I was on the carriage and I remember the directions she gave. So they set out, and Mulji tried to recreate the directions and the route, and there was no such place to be found. So the Masters of Wisdom, just as the space people from space, they used to be human beings, but they have evolved beyond the strictly human state. They have ways to manipulate time and space, because time and space are not real. They are not realities. They are not unshakable truths. They are very subjective. So when somebody's taken out of their physical body and their etheric body is on a spacecraft or somewhere else, these people can render your physical body invisible, so that it won't be found and people won't start messing with it to resuscitate you or put those things on you to make your heart start beating again. It's protected, made invisible, and that's why, for instance, Travis Walton couldn't be found for 5 days or whatever number of days it was.
Okay, so they're protected and just put aside then. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what I was concerned with. It would be I wasn't concerned to a point, but I hate to have them stuffed under a tree for 10 hours or a week or whatever the time was. When do you think, in your interviews with people over the years, when do you think we are all going to be open to this? When do you think, and I don't mean government disclosure, and if it is going to be government disclosure, it's going to be on the bequest of the Space Brothers, don't you think? It'll be something, it'll be an agreed time as opposed to somebody who's opening a file up and going on television and saying it.
Yes, I don't think at this stage that anybody in their right mind in a position of power would decide that it is a good idea to go in front of the public now and say, sorry folks, we've been duping you for the last 60 years. That would be political suicide. So if we just take a step back, to the effect that our thoughts have in this world, because we have created a massive thought form, throughout human history. But the same goes for the massive tension that exists in the world now as a result of the withdrawing of the energies of Pisces and the growing strength of the energies of Aquarius, from which the current polarization in the world results. And this massive tension equally has its effect on people. People feel burdened and stressed, and they hardly know where to find relaxation or peace of mind. And it's very difficult in this world to find such. Unless you completely shut off from the world, and then you're not part of it anymore, in a way. Because the world, we live and learn through our interaction with other human beings. So sitting on top of the mountain isn't necessarily the most, the most useful contribution to human life. It may be very useful for your own personal development, but not necessarily for society. And so this massive tension is created by circumstance because of the dawn of a new cosmic cycle, the new age of Aquarius, at which time always in history, throughout history, this body this new teacher comes forward And this time, the world teacher himself is stepping forward according to the wisdom teachings, the Ageless Wisdom teachings, but not alone. This time with a group of 14 masters of wisdom. So there's a whole spiritual hierarchy in this world, and 14 of those masters of wisdom are re-emerging for the first time in almost 100,000 years. This, of course, being a momentous time in human history and in the evolution of humanity, it creates its own tension, and as I mentioned before, the space people are here in support of that event. So I believe that only when, and everything is in place now for the final crash of our outdated systems, financial, economic, political, etc. I believe that when those systems finally crash and crumble, and the teacher steps forward and makes himself known, at that time people will also be asking him about reality. Is it true that there are people out there? And from that time on, gradually more open contact will be possible and will ensue, and there will be a more open working relationship. I mean, the space people have been working with our scientists for decades behind the scenes, but under great secrecy, by force, because the governments won't admit that they are real and that they are here. But they have been working together nonetheless, and only from the time when the teacher, the world teacher, has made himself known, and people have been reacquainted with the realities of life through his emergence and his declaration of his true status, will our minds be accepting of this wider reality of people from space, I think.
Oh, that's fascinating. In your life, do you think we're gonna reach that point?
I was going to say, look around you. The everything is in place for the collapse of our current systems. Nothing is working anymore. Nothing is, hardly anything is still serving the needs of humanity at this time. People, if you look at the prison population, especially in the United States of America, if you look at the effect that the austerity measures have had on people's lives, instead of serving the people's needs, people are slaves to the economy. We've been made slaves to the economy, to the financial system, because the banks had to be saved. The economy needs to be stimulated. The markets need to be reassured. We have created an upside-down system. We've allowed this system to be created by our leaders, our politicians, through the people that we've elected into office. And only the coming collapse will bring us back to our senses and help us reconnect with what is really valuable in life. And when this happens, there's Brexit. I don't know if you've heard of Brexit in Canada.
Just a little bit. Holy cow.
But that seems to have set in motion a certain chain of events. Italian banks this week have come out with major problems, very similar to the banking crisis that resulted in 2009 from the mortgage crisis in the United States. So, and because nothing of the underlying problems from the 2008 crisis have been addressed or repaired, things have only been allowed to build up more. There's even more debt now than there was, 8 years ago. So and there's so many warnings now coming from economic observers and market experts. Many had expected the crash in the second half of last year already, and I would be very surprised if it doesn't happen this year. So, and when it happens, Benjamin Creme, the British esotericist, whose mission it has been to announce to the world the presence and the imminent emergence of the world teacher, Maitreya by name, has said that when the systems crash and crumble, that will be the time that the teacher will step forward to give us this tremendous experience of our oneness as a human species, of a human family, not only with all our brothers and sisters on this planet, but also with the planet itself and with the rest of cosmos, with the whole of creation, and that will bring back to us this realization that we are one and that we need to start looking for ways to express that oneness in ways that are not harmful to other people, that are not competitive, but that would lead to even more chaos and conflict. But the only way out of that is through sharing what we have, the abundance that we have on this planet in food and resources and knowledge, etc., as the only way to lasting peace.
Well, and I totally agree. I think it was silly for England to come out of the EU, because the EU was almost like, okay, now we're all one, as opposed to all these little ships floating alone. And now it's off floating alone again. It's changed completely its course, and you almost think of it as, we're atomizing, we're breaking it up again. We're redrawing the map.
Yeah, the EU, of course, is great in the sense that it helps former enemies like Germany and France to work together, to take into account each other's needs and possibilities, where they can support each other, etc. I understand that it's never been the plan or the plan for the evolution of humanity to form a federation of European states, like in the sense of United States of Europe, because each of these European countries has their own destiny to fulfill. Poles will never be Greeks, and Portuguese will never be Swedish, so they're very definite individual states there that need to remain individual in their development and their path to their own destiny, expressing their own destiny. But in terms of economic cooperation, yes, I think it was a very, very stupid move on the part of the UK to leave the EU, especially in light of the fact that nobody apparently had a plan for post-Brexit.
Yeah.
And the people who advocated it most strongly have already stepped down as leaders of the process. So
Isn't that lovely? We've been talking to Gerard Aartsen, who has been a student of the Ageless Wisdom teachings for over 35 years. Now, his research into these teachings of the Masters of Wisdom resulted in comprehensive annotated catalog, which he published online as Our Elder Brothers Return, a History in books, 1875 to the present. And he is an author and longstanding co-worker of Share International, a worldwide network of groups affiliated with the British esotericist. It's Benjamin Creme. He's the main source of information about the return of the world teacher and the Masters of Wisdoms now. I'd like to thank you, Gerard, for coming on. It's been absolutely fantastic. I can carry on for hours talking about this. This is a bit of an eye-opener for me. I kind of deal with more of the metaphysical side of things, and Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio deals with the ufological, and this is a good mix for me. This is metaphysics and ufological and science all rolled up into one, and I really appreciate you coming out. And if, again, people go to his website, bgapublications.nl. Again, bgapublications.nl. Gerard's newest book, coming out, Priorities for a Planet in Transition. But don't ignore his other books. He's got a bunch of them out there. Here to Help, UFOs and the Space Brothers. Look up his things, the stuff that he's been involved in, and also his other publications and articles and catalog of teaching. Again, thank you, Gerard, for coming on Spaced Out Weekend.
Thank you very much for having me, James. It was a pleasure. It was a real joy.
Pleasure for me too. And have a wonderful week, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. That would be great.
And for my listener out there, remember, keep an open mind.
This is our last goodbye. Young hearts will stop. Torn souls set free. All that we have is now. If this is what you want, then come to me.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go. What are those voices? Look up to the mountains. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget your soul. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after now. On through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after. No!
I see dead people.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Dave's not here.